A few days ago, I reviewed Heidelberg 1693, a fantastic new side-scrolling action game that evokes the spirit of Castlevania in the 16-bit era. Boy, I sure wish that I had played Crossbow Crusade before taking that trip to Heidelberg, because now I'm worried that I'm going to spend this entire review comparing it to a far better horror-themed throwback released around the same time. That's not fair, because the newest game from HugePixel is disappointing on its own. It's a short and ultimately pointless platformer that basically gives up halfway through. My suggestion is to just buy Heidelberg 1693 instead. That's it. Into review. What, you still need more? Alright, let's get into this. I want you to hold back your shock and surprise when I tell you that awful things are happening in the Dead Kingdom. The evil spirits, disease, and rampant hunger are killing off the survivors, and hope and strength wears thin by the day. Heeding the call for help, a nameless monster hunter, whose only personality trait is that he owns a crossbow, comes to the rescue to fight through 15 monster-filled stages in order to slay the evil, and also nameless, ruler of the Dead Kingdom. This sets up a surprisingly short and simple side-scroller where our hero jumps on floating platforms and shoots zombies, bats, and other enemies with his crossbow. About the most depth that you're going to find in this game is the ability to use arrows as stairs, allowing the monster hunter to climb over obstacles and avoid bottomless pits. Not that you even have a choice, since it's the only way you can make it through these linear stages. There's no puzzle platforming here. Crossbow Crusade is as straightforward as you can get. As a fairly basic action game, this one isn't especially bad. You spend a lot of time jumping on narrow platforms and memorizing the enemy patterns. Sometimes there are big blobs to jump on that'll bounce our hero high up into the air, while other stages will have you pushing bird cages around using your arrows. It's not that the game doesn't add new elements and obstacles as you make it further into the 15 stages, but rather that they're so familiar and cliché that they don't even register as being new additions. There's not a lot here that's new or interesting. And that goes for the bosses too. At first, it felt like the boss fights were fun and tense, forcing you to see the pattern and use it against the tough foes. However, the boss designs take a big hit in the second half of the game. In that sense, it feels like the game gives up halfway through. We went from challenging bosses to pushovers who just stand in place until you shoot them enough times. The final couple bosses in particular are especially bad. It got to the point where I wondered if I'd broken the game in some way, because surely these monsters are supposed to do more than just stand there, right? The one unique thing this game has going for it is that the bosses will actually help our hero after they've been defeated. That turns out to be a big deal because it opens up a unique type of stage where we're slowly falling down a cave or riding a ghost like a boat. They may be quick and over way too soon, but they do a good job of mixing up the monotony of the standard platforming stages. I wish the game had more stuff like this. Between the pixel graphics and the simple control scheme, it's clear that Crossbow Crusade is going for that whole throwback retro vibe. The problem is that even by those standards, this game disappoints. Even the earliest 8-bit games bothered to give our heroes names and offer good reasons to hate the villainous bad guys. I say the game gives up halfway through, but it could be argued that the attempt was half-hearted right from the start. This is a game that does the bare minimum and hopes that that'll be enough because it looks old. Well, spoiler alert, that's not enough. It also doesn't help, the game is sluggish and occasionally hard to control. Crossbow Crusade has two big problems that thwarted my best efforts throughout the entire game. The biggest issue is the slight lag that happens between pushing the button and seeing the character jump. The gameplay is not tight or precise as many of the classic side-scrollers it's trying to copy. The game also has this issue where the character will stick into one position. You'll be shooting at an enemy that's right above the monster hunter, only to realize that you're stuck aiming up. I had a similar issue when I was crouching. This persisted across multiple controllers, which makes me think that there's something about the gameplay that just gets stuck mid-battle. Look, don't get me wrong, it's not that you can't have fun playing Crossbow Crusade. Even with the laggy control issues, the platforming is still fun, and the first couple of bosses, well, they're intense in all the right ways. But things break down when you start to notice that the developer is cutting too many corners and leaving some of the best elements out completely. With very little that's new or unique here, I find it nearly impossible to recommend Crossbow Crusade. Yeah, you should definitely buy Heidelberg 1693 instead. If you like side-scrolling action games that sorta look like they came from the 1980s, then Crossbow Crusade is definitely a game that you could buy. I mean, you should probably pick up something else, but it's certainly an option. With iffy gameplay, repetitive level designs, and a character that's not even interesting enough to name, this is the kind of underbaked misfire you'll completely forget about the moment it's over. Put that crossbow down and play a better game. Hey, thanks for watching our review. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new reviews and features almost every day. Now, here's the question I have for you. What is a video game story cliche that just needs to go away? This game is about a brave fighter that comes to save the kingdom from monsters, which is pretty much about as generic as you can possibly get. I mean, I get why this is the go-to, but you gotta toss it out and just come up with something more interesting. Literally anything. Just put the smallest of twists on the formula. I'm begging you. Anyway, let me see your picks in the comments below. In other news, we're gearing up for a full week of E3 coverage. Before that happens, however, we'll have a new episode of Game Over, followed by a whole lot more reviews. So many reviews. If that sounds good to you, then I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.